In fact, they are actually more important. They are more necessary for survival, if only for enlightened self-interest. The Church is political as well as prejudiced and elitist. It is deeply conservative, punitive, and competitive, a combination that makes the perfect partner for maintaining all the other male elites in society: governments, business, monarchy, the military, academia, and the professions, all of which retain to some extent discrimination against women and other lesser mortals. Women themselves have also allowed themselves to believe that they are irrational, they're special, they have a second sense, and that they should therefore believe in the supernatural, spirituality, alternative therapies, and New Age mumbo-jumbo, as if it was something to be proud of. Religion justifies paternalistic attitudes towards women that can counter women's right to choose, and this can be seen even in some parts of today's feminist movement. For example, in punitive attitudes to prostitution and family and child support. For women in society, the most serious result has been the historic exclusion of women from education, the professions, government and public debate, and decision-making of all kinds, and as a tool for social control. Imagine where we might be today had women's talents been used, their experience of looking after children and the family and the sick, that experience had been translated into healthcare. As it is, the only contributions were by men who knew very, very little of these things in practice, in terms of the ordinary lives of people. Religious teaching also justifies cruelty and violence towards disobedient women. The punishment of women for all sex outside of marriage for the procreation of children, poverty, stigma, unwanted pregnancy and motherhood, and STDs, all of which in the past were seen as God's punishment. All of this impacts on women's health and well-being. And to this end, the religions do as they always do, censor and suppress criticism and opposition. And they have always opposed progressive legislation that allows women's rights and to allow women to avoid the traditional punishments, such as condom use, contraception and abortion of unwanted pregnancies. Why don't people see the relevance of that? I do not know. If feminism, like today's big issue anti-capitalism, which I support, is without a much deeper understanding of its origins and attitudes, it will soak up activism like any other hobby. And at the end of the process, there'll be a lot of burnt out people who are doing exactly the same as people out there are doing at the moment. Nothing. The book I want to bring to your attention is this one here. It's called Women Without Superstition, No Gods, No Masters. And it was edited by Annie Laurie Gaylor, who is the president of the Freedom from Religion Foundation in the US. If I wanted a Bible, that would be my Bible. Because not only do I agree with it, but it actually mirrors my own personal experience over the last few decades. Because the women in that book were saying in the 18th and 19th centuries what I'm saying now, and they were getting treated the same as I have been treated for saying those things. I personally have been derided for many years, attacked and excluded for daring to oppose the sacred cows of unequal, punitive and conflict-ridden society. The Christianity of trial by ordeal, the poor law and the workhouse that shaped it, and from which we are still struggling to progress, only now to have it boosted by Islam and Sharia. I then found that far from being alone, there were many other women in the past who had dared to say these things, and were pilloried and abused and sidelined, censored, their writing censored and unable to be published for expressing exactly those same views, that same range of views. So you can imagine my feelings of vindication when I stumbled upon it. The book was given to me by Barbara Smoker. That book was given to me by Barbara Smoker, one of the sharpest and most effective intellect of the secular humanist movement in this country throughout her long life, and she is still active. Disgracefully neglected, in my opinion. The book she gave me, this one, became so dog-eared because I used it in the writing of a website based on the book, with, I might add, the agreement of the author. As I say, it became so dog-eared, so I eventually had to buy her another one, which you can only get at the moment through Amazon, because there is no distributor in this country. This book, for all it says about atheism, secularism and humanism, is not even listed on the organisations, the British Humanist Association and the National Secular Society, which I think is an absolute disgrace. It's one of the few really interesting and effective polemics, but because it's written by women, I think it is not being promoted. It's not even being exposed. Annie Gaylor, in the book, features 50 of the most courageous and outspoken British and American women freethinkers, and notes from many more, including Florence Nightingale, from Mary Wollstonecraft to Taslima Nasrin, and includes Barbara Smoker herself, Hypatia Bradlaugh Bonner, daughter of Charles, and George Eliot, and a whole lot more, British and American women, who stood up and took all that was thrown at them by the religions and the clerics of the time. They not only fought for women's autonomy, freedom and equality, but for the rights of others. They were a major part of the backbone of the abolitionist movement, though they never got any credit. They campaigned on many other human rights issues, such as those of the indigenous peoples of the various continents that they worked in. They worked on health, children, health education, children's rights, but crucially, the most important thing was that they recognised that religion and the clergy were the enemies of reason, women's rights and women's emancipation.